Let me ask you this question. Yeah, as you know, I'm Irish. We talked about that. Who's got the better food, the Irish or the Scottish?
The better food?
Food.
Probably.
Oh, by the way, Wilson Contreras, safe.
Both are very similar. Both foods are very.
Lots of potatoes.
Irish probably more so. They like to stew things.
Do not be alarmed. It's just a couple of guys. Who are these guys? Ray Regina, beloved former mayor of St. Charles, lifetime educator. And Pat Crimmins, a Geneva lawyer, but he's actually okay. From Elgin to Aurora, from Naperville to Elburn, these guys are gonna talk everything. So, here's Pat and Ray.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Just a Couple of Guys with your host, Ray Regina and Pat Crimmins, a show devoted to talking everything. We are pleased today to welcome a very special guest that has been on the national scene for a long time. Wayne Newton, referred to as Mr. Las Vegas, Mr. Entertainment, and the Midnight Idol, will be joining us. We will talk to Wayne about his career, his music, the Las Vegas scene, and those who have influenced him over the years. Wayne is coming to the Des Plaines Theater for his up-close and personal performance on September 11th at 5 p.m. You can get more information at DesPlainesTheater.com. Wayne will join us shortly, but when we return, Pat and I will parse and dissect, so stay tuned.
At McNally Heating and Cooling, we understand that customer satisfaction starts with arriving at your home on time. Your service technician will apply the same attention to detail and quality workmanship to every job, large or small. We offer upfront, honest pricing, and we'll make sure the job gets done right from start to finish. From furnace and air conditioning service, minor repairs, or total equipment replacement, we do it all. Give us a call or find us online and let the luck of the Irish work for you.
Hello, friends. This is Ray Regina. Break out your inner adventure with a trip to St. Charles, Illinois. Explore the vast culinary options with diverse and stellar restaurants that deliver on quality and service. Take the self-guided St. Charles Brewery Tour, where you'll find a new world of craft beer flavors and experiences awaiting you. Travel down natural walkways, trails, and even the Fox River on a riverboat or kayak. Make memories at all the fun places for activity, shopping, and recreation. It's time for an adventure. Visit stcalliance.org to start yours today. We are back with Nuggets and Tidbits, and our focus today on our Nuggets and Tidbits session is reviews. I know that we want to tell our audience a few reflections upon some shows that we like. You got one that...
I'm going to talk about two shows because they're both kind of in my mind. Better Call Saul.
Oh, well, I know I have not watched it, but I know it's very popular.
Better than Breaking Bad, in my opinion. And for those people who don't know, Breaking Bad was a show about a high school chemistry teacher who developed cancer, and then he broke bad, and he went to the other side, and he started making methamphetamine.
Oh my God!
And engaged with drug cartels and the whole thing.
But a tip of the hat to Bryan Cranston, because I thought he played the role superbly.
Fantastic.
I did see that. I mean, I watched all of that.
And then Better Call Saul is this show about a lawyer who was involved in Breaking Bad as kind of the cartel lawyer, but Better Call Saul is a prequel.
Yes.
to Breaking Bad.
The Chicken Man's in there, is he not?
That's right, Fring. Just a wonderful, wonderful show. I recommend it highly. And by the way, as a lawyer, they do a wonderful job with the law. Very accurate as it relates to the law. And the other show I wanted to talk about, which I just finished, it's only 8 episodes, 1 season, but they did get picked up for season 2. It's on Hulu, and it's called The Bear.
The Bear?
The Bear. And it involves a young lad who got some family dysfunction, and his brother, and of course this kind of ties in, his brother owned a restaurant called Chicago Beef, and a place where you could get Italian beefs and everything else. The whole show...
I saw the review on this.
Yes.
I saw the review on this.
The whole show is in Chicago. It's a Chicago-themed show. And what happens is the guy's brother, for whatever reason, ends his own life. And so this guy, the Bear, comes in. And who is the Bear? Well, the Bear is a master chef. Master chef, and he comes in and he's working in this, basically Chicago beef Portillo type place. And you wouldn't think this would be any good, but I got to tell you, the acting is out of this world. The writing is fantastic. There's a scene where this kid does about 10 minutes reflecting on his brother, and his brother's life, and how he related to his brother. He should win an Emmy just based on that scene alone. Fantastic show. I recommend it highly. It's on Hulu. And those are the 2 shows I wanted to talk about in this review section.
Yeah, I only have a couple, but the one that is in hiatus, but it was 10 episodes and it's going to come back, is Lincoln Lawyer. The Mickey, the lawyer. I thought about you a lot when I watched the show, the lawyer. He's played by Manuel Garcia Rolfo, and it's LA. He's in Malibu and Manhattan Beach, and
well, I could see why you would think of me.
LA area.
Sure.
And, it's a good law show for those of you who used to like LA Law or Boston Legal or some of those shows as well. So I mentioned that in passing. But three streaming shows that I think a lot of our listening audience probably have taken a glimpse at. But if you have not, I would recommend highly. You have to go back on this and dig it out of on demand, because it's done. It was just a series, and it's finished. And that's First Ladies. And it focuses on 3 former First Ladies: Michelle Obama, Betty Ford, and Eleanor Roosevelt. And a couple of casting roles I think were tremendous. Michelle Pfeiffer plays Betty Ford. Dear God, it looks, sounds, and acts like Betty Ford. Viola Davis plays Michelle Obama, and again, you think you're seeing Michelle Obama. And I gotta admit, they brought Kiefer Sutherland and Jack Bauer himself to play Franklin Roosevelt, and he does quite a nice job. There's other actors and actresses who do a great job as well. But what I liked about that show the most is they went back and forth in time from the 30s to the 70s. To the 8 years that Obama was in office, and the parallels on some of the historical events were just unreal. Betty Ford's journey into alcoholism is well depicted, and I think at the end of the day she conquered it, and was a stand-up First Lady, in my opinion. I mean, I really gained a lot of respect just watching this show and watching what happened. And Jerry at her side the whole time. He was only in office for a couple of years, but I always liked Jerry Ford.
He's my former congressman.
I know you told me in Grand Rapids.
Grand Rapids.
And I've got to get to that presidential library. I've gone to several of them, and that's one I've not been to yet. And it's a short 3 or 4 hour drive over there, so I got to get over to that one. Then the other 2, everybody I know has watched Ozark, and it's done, but it was fourth season, I believe. And if you haven't, you need to just go back and watch it, because it's just something else.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to simply say Laura Lindley and Jason Bateman are all stars in this. Any awards they've received, either in the past or are on board to get, are well deserved. It's just a remarkable performance involving drug trafficking again and laundering and all of it. A Naperville couple. I mean, that's where it starts out. They're from Naperville, Illinois. And they end up, by happenstance, because of a move he makes, and they end up in the Ozarks. And I won't get in, you have to watch it. It's almost a must.
A fantastic show. I would say the first episode, I don't know if it was a pilot or whatever, but the first episode of Ozark is some of the best television I've ever seen.
Oh, my God, yes. Yeah. Powerful. That was the episode where he pulls the brochure out of his pocket.
He's begging for his life.
He is.
And the idea occurs to him that there's more shoreline in the Ozarks than any other place in America.
All right.
I will say, though, the ending, less than adequate.
Well, without any spoiler alerts, we agree 100% on that. In the fourth season, you should have expected better.
Once again, I think it's one of these situations where they didn't expect a fourth season. So they get picked up, and then the writing is like, well, geez, we already had this idea. We finished the third season with this idea. Now we have to make another ending for the fourth season.
I always think about at the end of the third season, again, no spoiler alerts, but I think if that was the finish, that would have been a powerful finish at the end of the third season.
And Chicago, again, prominently displayed.
Oh, my God, yes.
Oh, wonderful.
And then last but not least, of course, Succession.
Oh, yes.
Which is in hiatus, but as you said, I think they're producing a new season as we speak.
That's right.
Brian Cox, the patriarch of the Roy family, Logan Roy. And basically it's for his kids. One of them, Kieran Culkin, is just tremendous, but they're all trying to outdo each other to take over the father's empire, and the father having nothing to do with it. He's saying, "Well, I'm not going to say." Well, what he bleep off is what he says numerous times in the show.
It's another series regarding a dysfunctional family where the family ordinarily shouldn't be dysfunctional given the money and the power and everything else. But many shows have been have taken from that, like Yellowstone and all these other shows where you have the dysfunctional family, the power, and everything else.
I saw in Yellowstone. I saw a clip. I have not seen Yellowstone, but I saw somebody flip a rattlesnake at somebody else. It was awful.
Oh,
if that was the one in question.
Murder is not limited to just the handgun. I mean, you can poison people. You can use snakes, and so but I've never watched. Well, I did watch a few episodes of Yellowstone.
The people that I talk to do like Yellowstone. I'm not going to talk about it because I haven't seen it, but I heard many people
Kevin
say,
Costner.
Oh, yes.
Dances with Wolves. But I'm not.
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams, a baseball movie.
White Sox over the Yankees.
Last
year.
Yes.
We're going to take a small break. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. I want to take a moment to let you know a secret about my good friend, Bob Karras, and his rookie restaurants around the Fox Valley. The summer heat has made Bob crazy. At all 6 locations, he's offering his August Inflation Buster special with hot dogs and hamburgers costing only $1 a piece. Imagine $1 for Rookie's delicious hamburgers and hot dogs. Now, toppings cost a little extra, but still, it's an amazing deal at an amazing place. But it's only available in August, so beat the inflation blues and head over to Rookies with locations in Elgin, Geneva, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, Roselle, and St. Charles. Rookies.com. I'll see you there. We are back and very pleased to have from Las Vegas, Mr. Las Vegas and Mr. Entertainment himself, Wayne Newton. Wayne, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Ray. Thank you very much. And I've been looking forward to talking to you guys.
That's great. And we know that in about another week and a half, you will be coming to our neck of the woods, the Des Plaines Theater in Des Plaines, Illinois, for a performance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And we're looking forward to that, too.
Well, we'll talk more about that a little bit later. You know, if we could start, I'd like to take you back and have you make some comments about the following. You know, you were born in the East, but by the time you were 10 years old, you're out in Phoenix, Arizona. And then you and your brother, Jerry, it seems like got involved in stage, so to speak. And why don't you tell our audience a little bit about that whole development leading up to your first break in Las Vegas?
Okay. I actually am from Virginia. I was born in Norfolk, Virginia. And I started in show business at the age of 4 years old, believe it or not. I had a local radio show when I was 5 years old in WDBJ in Roanoke, Virginia.
All right.
And I was a sick kid growing up, and my parents kept taking me to these doctors. And I think they finally found a doctor with a license. So they took me to see him. And he called us all, my brother, myself, and my parents into his office after he had done all the preliminary work. And he said to my parents, he said, if you want this kid to live, meaning me, he said, if you want this kid to live, you better get him out of this climate because he has bronchial asthma. And so my parents took us, we loaded up and moved to Phoenix, Arizona when I was 8 years old. And my brother and I auditioned in a local talent contest in Phoenix. And the grace of the good men upstairs and the people listening, we won that contest. That gave us our own weekly television show from the time I was 8 years old until I was 15. And at 15, and going to school all week, working the 30-minute television show once a week, and then on weekends, an agent from California passed through Phoenix and saw that television show, hunted up my parents' phone number, and said to my mother, I want that kid to try out in Las Vegas. So my brother and I jumped aboard a Greyhound, and one with wheels. And we came up to Las Vegas, and I was 15 years old. The gentleman auditioning us at the Fremont Hotel downtown listened to two songs and got up like he was leaving. And I thought, well, back to school. And he looked back at me and he said, if we can get you a work permit, he said, I'll hire you guys for 2 weeks. And so we went back to Phoenix for 2 days, got the call from the agent to come back to Las Vegas because they had gotten me the work permit. And the work permit was necessary because I was not 21 years old. And at 15, I still have that permit to this day, by the way.
Is that right?
It says Wayne Newton can work at the Fremont Hotel. He's just not allowed to be in the place he's working. And I didn't know what that meant until they gave us our schedule of work. And that schedule of work turned out to be 6 shows a night, 6 nights a week, 40 minutes on stage, 20 minutes off, 6 times a night.
And nobody hollered about child labor laws or anything of that nature?
Nothing like that, no. And so it meant that I would have to go outside of the hotel on that 20-minute break each hour and stand on the corner of Fremont Street and then come back in for my next show.
Now, let me ask this question. Eventually, as I understand it, you and your brother got on the Jackie Gleason show, and then you got on Bonanza as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. The gentleman who had given us our television show in Phoenix, when Mr. Gleason had been on the air for a lot of years, and then he took a 2-year hiatus from television and then was going back on the air with the show again. And because he would not fly, he rented a train in New York, loaded it with press people, and they would stop in all the big cities up to the West Coast, and Phoenix being one of them. So the gentleman asked me to come down and sing at the luncheon, and for Mr. Gleason. And so I knew that he was Irish, and that's about all I knew about him. And I closed my portion of that luncheon show with the song Danny Boy. And Mr. Gleason stood up at the end of that because he was on the dais. And he said, "Don't go on any other show before you go on mine." As if anybody was looking to put us on television, you know. And so we found ourselves 2 weeks later driving to New York to do Mr. Gleason's first show, coming back on the air. And then around 1965, I think, I was doing an engagement at the Coconut Grove in Los Angeles. And I was traveling with Mr. Jack Benny then as his opening act. And so he filled the opening night with stars, and the producer of Bonanza being one of them. And so he offered me the guest starring role in a Bonanza series. And so that's how I ended up on Bonanza.
And one more question before I go to Pat. You are capable of playing, as I understand it, numerous instruments. What instruments do you play, and how did you become proficient?
What happened is I don't read music, and so when we started doing Vegas at 15, I played the steel guitar, lead guitar, and I think piano then. And with 6 shows a night, 6 nights a week, I was the only singer between my brother and myself. And so you can't sing that much without losing your voice once in a while. And so I kept developing instruments in order to give me vocal relief. And today I play 13 different instruments and still do not read music.
Pat?
That's amazing. This is Pat, and Wayne, I just want to tell you it's amazing to talk to you, and it's a great pleasure. We really
thank you, Pat.
It. Yeah,
been looking forward to this. Thank you.
I don't want to get too serious here, but I did want to talk about with school starting. I wanted to talk a little bit about your childhood in relation to the fact that it's my understanding you're half Cherokee. Is that right?
Actually, I'm half Indian. My father was a Powhatan, half Powhatan and half Irish. And my mother was half Cherokee and half German. So I'm a quarter Irish, a quarter German, and a half Native American.
Half Native American. Now, did that cause you difficulty as a child growing up?
It's interesting because in Virginia, it caused me no problem at all. I didn't even think about it. But once I got to Arizona, that is the first time I felt any kind of a line drawn, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And I became interested and affiliated with an orphanage outside of Phoenix called St. John's Indian School. And so we would do concerts out there, and we would take shows out there. And then every year I would have a drive in school to raise money and food, actually, for the kids that were in that orphanage. And so I ran into some prejudice people here and there, but never anything that would have deterred me from doing that.
And you've become over time an advocate for Native Americans, obviously. Is that right?
Yes, sir. That is a fact.
And I remember the story, I think, about your daughter being a teacher. And I think you said something about looking at her textbook and you were offended by some of the content of the textbook as it relates to Native Americans.
Well, they were going through the story of the Cherokee Deer Trail in school, and she was in the 6th grade at that time. And happened to say to her at the dinner table, what are you studying? She said, the Cherokee Tear Trail. And I had never gone into our heritage with her because I felt she was a little young to be taking that on. And so I said, can I see what you're studying? And she brought me her book, and I read it, and it was the biggest crock of lies I've ever heard in my life, because I became quite a student of what was going on at that time in our nation, and how many Native Americans died on that famous, drive from the East Coast and south to Oklahoma. And so I didn't say anything to my daughter, but I went to the school, and I said to the principal, I said, I can't have my daughter studying these lies because they are lies, and you guys all know that. And the principal said, you're absolutely right, Mr. Newton. And so we simply will not judge her on this term in school where she's studying that.
And just so the audience knows, the Cherokee Tear Trail was what, sir?
It was when Andrew Jackson decided to move the Native Americans to Oklahoma, and they put together about 16 to 1,800 people and drove them in the dead of winter walking from the south and from the east all the way to Oklahoma in the dead of winter. And approximately 30 to 40% of them died on the way.
And the textbook that your daughter had been using told that story in a different way, or lied about
it lied about, yes. It in fact, it didn't even mention the horrors that they dealt with on that particular drive.
And obviously that affected you, and that's why you remain an advocate today?
Yes, it is. Yes, sir.
Ray, you want to talk about Vegas?
Yes, Wayne, I'm fully aware of the fact that you've played at some of the big houses in Vegas, past and present, the Stardust, which of course is no longer with us, but the Trop, and of course we mentioned Flamingo and Caesars and MGM Grand, and you mentioned the Fremont, and there's probably others that I did not list here, but I've been going to Vegas since the 70s, and I have an opinion about the changing face of Vegas. But I want our audience to hear from you. What do you see as the big changes in Vegas from the time you started performing there to today?
I think that the biggest change probably happened as a result of what we all went through in the last 2 years with COVID. And Vegas has gone through different changes about every 10 years. When I came up here at 15 years old, it was Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis, and they were all at the Sands Hotel,
right,
which no longer exists.
I've been there. They got my money at the Sands.
And then we went through the phase of about every 10 years it would change. And we went through the phase of magicians with white tigers with Siegfried Roy. And then we went through another 10 years of impressionists, of performers who would be playing here and headlining and doing impressions of other performers. And the rock and roll acts would not play Las Vegas. And in fact, when I first came here, you could not do a television show from here. The first one to come and do a television show was Dinah Shore. And then along came Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas and on and on and on. And now, of course, they're doing movies here left and right. And we're having 3 or 4 different network shows coming from Las Vegas. So it's been an evolution of about every 10 years that those things go on.
You seem to be rolling along real well, despite all those changes, if you will. And so it seems to me, but you can answer this yourself, whether or not any of those changes really have affected you and your ability to perform your performances and your songs, et cetera, et cetera.
I think that in retrospect, as I look back at my career, I started in country and Western music in Virginia. And then when we moved to Arizona, we had a different audience, of course. And we moved into Western music and some swing kind of music. And I developed an appreciation for that. And then when we came to Las Vegas, you had to be 21 years old to even come in and see the show. And so those people, depending on what part of the country they were from or what part of the world, really leaned toward more Broadway kind of music and the standards and that kind of thing. So I actually was able to change what I was doing, not noticeably necessarily, but being able to appreciate those different kinds of music and adjust to those as I was performing. And when we would travel, if we were playing Texas or we were playing Louisiana, of course, the country music was a big thing. But if you were playing New York, they don't want to hear a lot of country music. And so it really kind of depended upon my ability to enjoy, learn, and perform those other kinds of music too.
All right. Well, we're going to take a small break. And when we return, we want to talk to you about some of your greatest hits and the stories behind them. So we'll be right back with Wayne Newton.
Prepare to be moved. We are the Fox Valley Auto Group. Both our Volkswagen and Buick GMC dealerships are located here in St. Charles, and we're proud to serve our community. As a recipient of the BBB Torch Award for Ethics, we are dedicated to ensuring quality first, always upholding uncompromised integrity, being customer-focused, and seeking continual improvement. Stop in today or visit our website at foxvalleyautogroup.com.
We are back with Mr. Entertainment himself, Wayne Newton from Las Vegas. And as you know, he's going to be here in Chicagoland at the Des Plaines Theater. Pat's going to talk to him about that in a little bit. But Wayne, I'm going to give you 5 titles, 5 records that hit it pretty well in various charts along the way. And what I want you to tell our audience is some of the backdrop to these songs, the stories behind them, how they evolved, etc. And I'm going to give them to you, all 5, and you can comment on each one. Of course, one of the great ones, Dunkashane, Daddy Don't You Walk So Fast, which won a gold record, as you know, Red Roses for a Blue Lady, The Letter, and Years. The Years, which was one of the ones that you did in the 90s. So have at it.
Okay, well, let's start with Dunkashane, of course. I think that it might not be common knowledge, but when I did that Jackie Gleason show in 1963, and then when it aired, I had said to Mr. Gleason, because he called us into his office after we had done his first show, being my brother and myself. And by that time, we had added a bass player and a drummer. And Mr. Gleason said, I want you guys to stay in New York. And if you do, I'll put you on my television show every other week. What a break that was, as you can imagine. So I said, Mr. Gleason, it's wonderful beyond words, but we'd have to find a job because we don't have enough money to stay in New York. And he said, I'll get you a job. Don't worry about it. And so the reason I go into this long story is it's quite interesting, I hope. And that is that his office called a couple of weeks later, and they said, we have your job and you're to start this night. And the night was after his first show aired on television. And the job was in the lounge at the Copacabana in New York. And so we were thrilled to have the job and go ahead and start performing. And I walked out on opening night in that little lounge, and seated in the back of the room, which was not very big, was the incredible Bobby Darin. And I was such a big Bobby Darin fan, and still am to this day.
Mac the Knife himself.
Yes, sir. And I don't remember. I think I went into temporary paralysis. I don't remember what I sang or said or did that particular show, but there was a waiter standing at the bottom of the stairs when I walked off stage, and he said, Mr. Darin wants to meet you. And so I went back to shake Bobby's hand, and he said, I came here, I saw you on the Jackie Gleason show last night, and he said, I called around this morning to find out where you may be performing, and they told me here. And he said, so I came here to ask you a question. And I said, sure, Mr. Darin. And he said, are you recording? No, sir, I'm not. He said, well, you are now. He said, you and I will be in the studio next week here in New York, and I will be producing all of your records from this point forward. So a week later, I find myself in a recording studio in New York City. And the first song that he gave me was a song called Heart, Heart. And that went to like top 16 or 17 across the nation. And then the next recording session, he gave me Donkey Shane. And I recorded that, and we know how that turned out.
Yes, we do.
And so about a year after I had recorded Donkey Shane, I found out that song was truly written for Bobby Darin to record and follow his hit of Mac the Knife with it. But he was so intent to make sure that he got me a hit record that he gave me that song to record. So that's how I ended up with Donkey Shane.
Daddy, don't you walk so fast.
I got that from two writers in London, England, that had sent it over to, by that time I had an office in Beverly Hills at where really my manager and those kind of people stayed. And I got an acetate demonstration record from London, England, called Daddy, Don't You Walk So Fast. And this would have been around 1973. And it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up when I heard it. So I called Capitol Records, which Bobby had put us with, to release my stuff. And the head of A&R there said, no, I'm not thrilled with that song, because I sent it over to him. But I said to my conductor and arranger in Vegas here, I said, do me a favor, do a record chart on this and let me do it live for the audience and let me get their reading on it, because there was something about that song I couldn't pass up. And so I started singing it on stage, and within a week, I had people coming into the show for the second time simply to hear that song and request it for me to sing it. So I decided to go ahead and record it and pay for it myself. And when I did, I took it into this guy at Capitol Records, and I'm kind of an easy coin guy, in my opinion, which I respect. And the one thing that irritates me and probably pushes my button the quickest is rude people. And so I went in to see this guy, and I had sent him my version of that song to listen to. So he had it. And when I walked into his office, he had his feet up on his desk and he wouldn't even look at me. And I said, "Did you get the record that I sent?" And he said, "Yes." And with that, he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out the acetate. He put it on his record player and he played it. And without looking at me again, he said, "That could be the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard." I was so angered by his attitude and what he said. I said, "Well, you have no money in this at all. I've paid for it. So why don't you give me the record back and my contract?" So he reached in his drawer at his desk and pulled out my contract and handed it to me, still without looking at me or talking to me. And so I took my contract and the acetate. I walked out of Capitol Records. And as I was going down, of course, Capitol had that big tower in Los Angeles.
Right.
And as I was going down, I thought maybe I had overreacted, and yet it was what it was. And so I went to Wes Farrell, who had produced a lot of the records after Bobby passed away. And he said, I told him the story, and he said, "Well, I've been thinking about starting my own record label. So why don't we start it with this song?" And he did. And the rest of it's history. The song sold about 5 million copies worldwide. And the song went gold and the album went platinum. And the guy at Capitol Records got fired.
Is that right? Well, respecting the time, and I mentioned Red Roses for a Blue Lady in the letter and years, but I do want to ask this question before I go to Pat, because he wants to bring in some other matters before we finish today. But you've been involved with entertaining our troops, and we can't leave this interview without you commenting on the fact that you've been honored by the USO and you do this entertainment of our military. Give us some reflection on that.
Well, I think that in high school, before I quit to come to Las Vegas, I had taken ROTC. And I thought that if the entertainment end of what I was doing didn't work out, that maybe I could go into the military. So when it came time, I was 18 years old, and the draft was on because the war in oh my God, Vietnam was raging. I went for my selective service meeting, and so the gentleman looked at my medical records, and he just stamped my papers and handed it to me, and he said, "You can go." And I said, "Go where?" And he said, "I don't care where you go, just go ahead home." And I looked at my papers and it said 1Y on it. And I said, "Well, can I ask you a question? What does 1Y mean? I know what 4F means. What does 1Y mean?" And he said, "That means the Russians would have to be in the lobby before we caught them." So I walked out of there and I was appearing, and I was actually depressed because I was looking forward to being inducted. And so I walked out of there and caught the plane back to Lake Tahoe where I was appearing. And I found out before I walked on stage that the Marine Corps had bought out the showroom that night for a show. And I walked out to the sea of blue uniforms. And I thought to myself halfway through the show, they can stop me from fighting for my country because of my asthma, but they can't stop me from singing for my country. So I came off stage and I said to my brother and manager, I'm going to Vietnam to entertain our troops. You guys don't have to come. It will not affect your job in any way, but I'm going. So we ended up going to Vietnam twice to entertain our troops. And it was the most rewarding shows to this day that I've ever done. Anytime I'm performing for the military, and we have been and performed really in every major conflict that our country has been in since Vietnam, and we were there twice.
God bless you for that, and I know our audience probably echoes what I just said. Pat?
You've got several nicknames here, Wayne, the Midnight Idol, Mr. Las Vegas, and Mr. Entertainment. I don't know which one your favorite, but because you're Mr. Las Vegas, I'm certain that the listeners here would like to know about some of the people you may have met in Las Vegas and worked with in Las Vegas. So I'm just going to give you a name and just tell me briefly what experience you had with them and your impressions of them. Howard Hughes?
I worked for Mr. Hughes for 14 years, and I met him twice during that time, and he could not have been nicer. And, of course, he was living at the top of the Desert Inn Hotel, which no longer exists now. And he would send his secretaries over to my dressing room to say he was proud that of the kind of show that we were doing and how much he enjoyed it, and that kind of thing. Could not have been nicer. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Elvis Presley.
Elvis and I became friends because little did I know, we talked about Bonanza earlier. Well, I was sitting at the Paramount Motion Picture Lot, which is where they shot part of Bonanza in those days. And that was my first time acting. I was studying my script and I felt a tap on the shoulder. And I looked around, and of course I was a big Elvis fan, as we all were and are. And there stood Elvis tapping me on the shoulder. And I started telling him what a big fan I was and all that kind of thing. And he said, Wayne, he said, I'm doing one of my movies on the next stage over. And he said, my guys told me that you were here. And he said, so I came over to ask you a question. And I said, sure, Elvis. And he said, do you know a girl by the name of Sandy Farrah? And I said, well, yes, I do. Yeah. We're dating. And he said, so are we. And we both started, luckily, to laugh hysterically and became instantaneous friends. So that's how I met Elvis. And we were friends his entire life.
And we never heard from Sandra again. Is that the?
No, in fact, she got married finally. She married Wink Martindale.
Oh, wow!
And so they have been married in excess of 40 years to date. Wow! And are still very dear friends of mine, I'm proud to say.
And we can't leave without talking about Frank Sinatra. I'm sure you had encounters with him.
I did. In fact, he was a friend to me long before I even realized it. When I was at the Fremont doing the 6 shows and he was at the Sands, if he was doing a fundraiser for the university or a charity of some kind, he always made sure that there was room on that show for me to perform. And I never understood it right in the beginning. And later on, many years later, his wife told me that that was his way of looking out for me to make sure that I didn't get in trouble, that I survived this industry, and that he wanted to make sure that I didn't show up at any of his parties.
Well, I have a personal stake in Las Vegas. I used to live in Oakland, California. I'm a big Raider fan, and the Raiders have come to Las Vegas. Have you had any dealings with Mark Davis or the Las Vegas Raiders as yet?
As a matter of fact, they did their preseason game here about 10 days ago. Or a week, and they asked me to sing the national anthem. Oh. And I had met Mark a couple of times before that, and he and I became really good acquaintances also. So having them here is just incredible, and I think it shows again the evolution of our city, because it kind of started with the hockey team first coming here.
Right.
The Golden Knights, and they had made such an impression, wonderful impression on the locals of our city. And I think the football team is doing the same thing. So I wouldn't be too surprised that we end up with an NBA team here in the future, because the town is growing and can really support that, in addition to all the tourists coming here.
Sure. Major League Baseball too, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, let's get to the show. I've been to the Displays Theater. I don't know if you have, Wayne, but it's a wonderful place, and people can find out about it at displaystheater.com. And obviously your show is September 11th at about 5 p.m., I think. And the show's called Up Close and Personal. And that's a show that TripAdvisor calls one of the top 4 shows in the world. And yes, I don't know. I don't know what these other 3 shows are, but that's an amazing, amazing. What's the word I'm looking for here? Tribute to your show.
Well, it truly is amazing, and there's nobody more surprised than me, because what had happened is Caesars had asked me to write a special show for a very intimate showroom that they had. And so I wrote this particular show, and I was going through, my history and the stories of the people that helped me to survive and prosper. And I would say things like, with my wife in the room and my other compatriots, I would say, nobody's interested in that story. And one of them would say, oh, yes, they are. And so that's how the show came about. And it has been wonderfully accepted because I talk about the history of Las Vegas, the history of myself, the history of the performers who made Las Vegas what it is today. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the show is. It's more than just singing songs and doing songs that I hope people want to hear.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what we've done here today, right? You've talked
exactly. Yes,
you talk about everything basically. Well,
right.
That sounds great. September 11th, Displays Theater, displaystheater.com. Wayne, we really appreciate you being here and spending time with us. Ray, you want to close it out?
Yeah, I would just say the same thing, Wayne, that you've given our audience a very comprehensive look at you, your career, your songs, Vegas, and a whole lot more. And we look forward to you taking a little bit of a time out from Vegas and coming to Chicagoland next week. And meanwhile, all the best to you, sir, as you continue to run in Vegas at the Wayne Newton Theater at the Flamingo Hotel.
Thank you, Ray and Patrick. God bless you and everybody listening, and I look forward to seeing you there.
All right. Thanks, Wayne.